5:30 and I'm calling the meeting to order. A reminder, meetings of the select board are meetings conducted in public. They are not meetings of the public. Nonetheless, members of the public shall be afforded reasonable opportunities to express opinions about matters conducted by the select board so long as order is maintained. The rules for public comment are: at the conclusion of a select board discussion on an agenda item, but before any action is taken, there may be 10 minutes afforded to public comment. Comments made by the public must be addressed to the chair or to the select board as a whole, and not to any individual members of the select board or members of the public. Members of the public must be acknowledged by the chair before speaking. If a member of the public has already spoken on a topic, they shall not be recognized again until others have first been given the opportunity to comment. Order and decorum shall be maintained throughout the meeting. Personal, impertinent, threatening, or profane remarks will not be tolerated. For those who are participating via Zoom, please note that chat is not an appropriate avenue for public comment. All public comments must be made verbally when acknowledged by the chair. A reminder to all that this meeting is being recorded and may appear on the internet. So with that said, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
I just want to make one adjustment. Under item 8, select board unfinished.
Yep.
It's period 10, not 9. That was my mistake.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm good.
Alrighty. Okay then, can I have, the next thing is to approve the minutes of April 20th and April 27th. April 20th, it was only a 3-person board, so Eric and Josh, do you want to?
You want to change that to Hazelton instead of Tom Hazelton?
It does matter, so that's good. Why don't you make a motion first?
We change
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
to approve the minutes
Yeah.
with a change to to Drew Hazelton.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any other changes that anybody noticed?
That's the only one I saw.
What was that change, Jared?
Wonder where we went over, talked about rescue last, or whatever, April 20th.
Yeah.
It's on the
So-
second page.
Tom Hazelton. Should be Drew Hazelton.
Okay, yeah.
Got part of it right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Is there public comment on the April 20th minutes? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. And Charlie and Peg, you should probably recuse yourself or abstain because you weren't there at that meeting.
Oh, right, okay, then we so recused.
Okay. April 20th, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the April 27th meeting?
So moved. Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the April 27th, 2022 meeting. I would like to make a inquiry. It says that we started the meeting at 5:30 and we adjourned at 5:26.
Well, that can't be right.
So I'm not sure what that time was, but
The efficiency is mind-boggling.
I run a good meeting.
Expanding the select board.
So that, no, it was only like a half an hour that meeting.
So probably 6.
Yeah.
Okay. That was the only thing I saw. Does anybody else have any?
So it could be
We might be able to go
made
back.
to adjourn at approximately
Yeah.
PM is probably fine.
But we might be able
These
to
purposes.
recreate it through the BCTV
Oh,
footage, just
Yes.
to take that amount of time and,
I will have Cass,
Check on that.
yeah.
okay. Are there any other changes? Is there any public comment on the April 27th minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Are we allowed to?
Yes.
You were there.
That's good.
All right,
Moving on to warrants to the treasurer, yep.
I'll make a motion to approve and execute the warrants as presented upon completion of review.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants upon completion of review. Do we vote on that first? Okay,
We have to review them and then.
I'm blanking now. Okay, Karen, you're up.
Okay, so payroll warrant dated May 6, 2022, in the amount of $20,467.99.
And this is in your packet if you want to.
So, yeah, it looks like this. That should be in order of the agenda. You don't have it?
No,
I don't think that was in order.
It looks, did you see, it looks like
it
this.
didn't come out on the attachment, but he gave it to us
We
tonight.
don't usually get them in the attachments.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that's
they're not completed, but it should be in your paperwork.
Right.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have a discussion about whether or not I should be doing 5 packets for everybody.
Got it
All right.
now.
Okay. Does anybody see anything in the payroll?
And just so the newcomers understand, this is the elect amount, and net amount. So we used to do this strictly by checks. The vast majority of paychecks are now paid by direct deposit, so that's what the electronic is. Reflects that, and some of the holdouts are getting paid with a check.
Yeah, I just note that, that it looks like the listers are busy.
They are
Yeah,
very
okay.
busy right
It's that
now.
time of year.
Yes.
Um,
So they're putting in between like 50 and 60 hours
yeah,
bi-weekly.
Yeah.
I suspect that'll slow down a little bit.
it usually slows down after they've lodged, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm certain that most of their, if not all of the site inspections have been completed
Hmm. Nice.
for the zoning.
Any other questions on the payroll? Okay, moving on to the accounts payable.
Accounts payable dated April 23rd through May 6th, 2022, in the amount of $72,647.11. I do want to bring to the board's attention, Simon's Operations, that is 2 months worth of billing. Their administrative person was out, ill, so we ended up with 2. There were some old bills that just showed up that got paid throughout this warrant.
DuPont storage?
DuPont
That
storage,
comes from the restoration fund.
yes.
We use restoration funds to purchase new shelving for the vault. And if you want to look, it's fabulous.
Great.
Yeah. It's actually starting to look like a vault instead of just a mess.
Does anybody else have questions on this?
Paul Bemis is the work out front on the stairs.
Okay.
So that is the rest of the money for that project. And Wex, Wex is Wex.
Lawson Products, is that Lawson's Brewery or something we should know there?
No, I try not to do that, Josh. I don't
Probably
know
bolts
what-
and stuff.
I'm gonna look.
Is that what it is?
I think so, probably.
Okay.
And Demco?
Demco's the library. Yeah. Let me just. I have all the invoices with me each meeting, so if you folks wanna come in early and rifle through them. That is library, so it was the purchase of some library supplies.
Question, Simon Operation Services,
That
It's
is,
a fairly large number.
that's 2 months worth of billing.
That's the
Kind of the sewer and water for
Yeah.
us.
Yes.
Okay,
They're the
Okay.
operating service that they do all our water testing, all our management of both of those facilities.
And what is Southwestern New Hampshire dist?
That's the.
Mutual aid.
That's okay,
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
thought. Okay.
It's radio maintenance. So new radios.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Alright, any comments from the public regarding the warrants? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. So next is public comments on items not on the agenda. Lionel.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see the family of 5. That's awesome. I've just come today, not to make a request, but to mention something that I'm working on, that I'm hoping that the select board might consider being supportive of. As you may or may not know, Forest for Learning is a 501c3 that owns and manages the what was the Putney School forest land.
Putney Central School Forest.
Putney Central, right? Putney Central School. It's where the town pool is. You take that little road, and then there's a path that goes over a wet meadow and brings you to a bridge across Sackett's Brook. That meadow has been flooding quite significantly, increasingly so in the past few years. What's happening is Sackett's Brook is filling up and jumping over its banks and then washing out over the meadow. And it's becoming impassable, especially when it rains. But that tends to last for longer and longer periods of time. So looking forward, we really think we're going to have to do something to fix that. We have 6 outdoor classrooms for the Central School kids in the forest and miles of hiking trails. And our mission is nature appreciation, trying to encourage people to enjoy being outside, but learn more about how it works and why it's important. So we're going out for a grant, an RTP grant, which is a Recreational Trails Program grant. And this year's maximum is $30,000. So we'll be going out for the maximum to do a boardwalk. So the idea would be to build a permanent boardwalk from where it dips down all the way to where the bridge is. So it's 500 feet. We'd like to use black locust posts, which are quite pricey. And so we think the total project to get all the way to the bridge will be about $70,000, which obviously is way more than we can get from the grant. So we're going to try to chunk it in half and do half of the boardwalk to a viewing platform, which will be handicap accessible so that folks in wheelchairs will be able to get out in the middle of this marsh, even when it's flooded, and sort of experience that. Could be kind of good. So we're allowed up to 3 letters of support, and the board feels that if the select board were supportive of the project, that a letter of support from the select board would be very valuable to the grant application success. So I know you're all busy, and I'm happy to draft some language and bring it to Karen prior to your next meeting for you to consider. And if there are any changes you'd like to make, I'm more than happy to make any adjustments you would want. So I'm not asking for anything, but if anyone is vehemently opposed to this, then I won't bother. But if that's okay, then I'll be back in 2 weeks.
When's the grant due?
The grant is due on the 26th.
Okay.
So I believe your next meeting is the 18th. So that would give enough time.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Sense of the board?
Looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, does anybody want to discuss that? Does anybody have any objections, roaring objections?
I think we ought to support.
So, nothing to vote on at this moment until we see a draft letter.
Yeah.
It does sound like you have the support of the board, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Lionel, just so you know, and you may already know this and may have, but we have a local sawyer whose sort of specialty is black locust.
I didn't know that.
And I'd be happy to put you in touch with him. But he actually does one of his main things is making the slats for trail systems up in northern Vermont. He makes zillions of 4 and 5 foot slats that he then delivers all out of black locust. But he has large inventories most of the time, so he'd be a good guy for you to talk to. And he could easily have posts, et cetera. He's got good connections with black locust. So
Terrific. I talked to a person that does trail work up north, and he mentioned that his source for black locust was someone from Putney.
yeah. And I think they're actually just over the line into Westminster, so their child probably is not, they have a child that would be coming up on Putney Central School age, but I think they might be in Westminster, I'm not sure.
Terrific. Could I
But
maybe ask you for the name of some?
sure, John Williams, I don't know, but yes,
Oh, is it John Williams?
I can get Karen
Okay.
the number and she can get it, or I'll give it to Eileen, I have it in my phone.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there other public comment on items not on the agenda?
We have 2 hands.
I can't see the hands for some reason.
Howard Fairman and Michael Mrowicki have hands up.
Okay, Mike?
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good, thanks. I have a quick thing to ask, offer to the select board, but I first wanted to mention to Lionel, I think this is a great project, and if it would help, I'd be glad to write a letter of support as well for the project. The reason I'm here for another reason, but I wanted to share something and offer to the select board that I've been in contact with the secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. Now, before COVID, it was a previous secretary. We had arranged for a meeting for them to come to Putney and talk with local business, and the landscape was a little different. There was actually a group trying to get the business community together and organized, and then COVID happened. So lots of things fell apart, fell off the table. I've been in contact with Secretary Kerrey, and she would be amenable to coming down at some point, and I wanted to let the select board know if they were interested. I would coordinate with them at a time they could be there, as well as getting other people in the business community to see what options are here. You know, they're very interested in helping support villages and small downtowns like we have, and hopefully we can get that boost to kickstart things after COVID. So I just wanted to hold that up, and I can talk to Karen later, but I wanted to share that right now, and as something different from the original reason I was going to be here with the declaration. So thank you.
Is there a discussion on the board? Okay, moving on, Mr. Fairman.
Here I am. 2 points. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. First, I just wanted to say that a beautiful job was done on the Putney Town Hall front steps. I was walking by, I watched them doing it. Who did it? So everybody can know whom they want to call to get some similar work done.
Paul Bemis.
Thank you. Okay, and I have one other brief point, which turns out is apropos to what Representative Mrowicki just said. I take the liberty of suggesting that each of our now 5 select persons volunteer to oversee an aspect of governing the town of Putney. For example, but not to make an example, I take the further liberty of suggesting that Select Person Robichek, who has publicly shared his concern, undertake oversight of the town of Putney's State of Vermont Village Center and Neighborhood Development Area designations that have languished despite availability of significant funding if applied for. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there discussion among the board on that, on those two?
Do you need an answer now?
No,
No,
but what, do you have a general, I mean,
oh, yeah.
in general, I think
I
it's,
have supported this. I've talked to several folks, the owner of the general store and several other businesses in town, and they've given me some ideas. And yeah, I do want to take this forward. I question whether or not it should be some sort of a special committee.
mhm.
Although, you know, it's always easy to say, oh, pass it off to a committee, but I don't know if I should or could do this by myself.
You wouldn't be able to.
Right, and I think,
I don't think so.
yeah, I mean, I think
But we
that,
talked too.
Yes.
I think that with a 5-person board, it may be a little bit easier for us to divide our interests a little bit more. I think the planning commission could do with a liaison from the select board, development review board, all of these boards that we ask to do things for us may, what's the word I'm looking for? Benefit from our input. And that way there's, you know, more communication between them and us. Sometimes I think the committees feel like they're working in a vacuum a little bit, and maybe sometimes we feel like they're not communicating with us. So I think that's one of the good points of having more people at the table here.
Yeah, well, let's pursue that then.
All right.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I think we should probably, at some point before too long, have a meeting or a session centered on select board goals and
That's a good
what
idea.
those would look like. Because I think
Excellent idea.
with more people at the table, I don't know. My first instinct in hearing representatives to each of those committees, to development review and planning, is that we do. Is there value in autonomy of those groups as well, and what does that look like? And I just think that's something we'd have to consider.
Sure.
Because I think that right now, one of the Wyndham Windsor housing project, for example, that's been a political animal, and it's been I think valuable for the select board to say this belongs to a different committee, and so I just would. Not that I'm opposed to it, but I think we would want to have conversations about what having representatives from each of the members. I mean, we often do, as you know, in many of the committees, there are
We end up having,
representatives.
yeah.
But those two, and I don't know whether the VLCT might have an opinion about that too, and I don't know where they check it.
Right, I mean, and I was on the planning commission for a period of time, and, you know, I resigned partly because it was just too much for me to handle, but it was also getting to the point where I felt like I was wearing too many hats and being asked to do things in the meeting or explain things or whatever in a different meeting that I didn't feel like I really had the authority to say. So there is that, but I do think that there is more opportunity for communication among the boards. Collaboration, and I also think having select board goals is an excellent idea. Is there further discussion? Are there any other comments online? There's another person whose name is iPhone. You can speak, but you need to identify yourself first.
I think it's Howard Fairman.
Oh, is that Howard?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anybody else
I
with
don't
their hands
see
up?
anyone else.
All right, is there anybody else in the room?
What's going on here?
Jonathan?
There's another hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Larry,
I just have a really brief announcement. I put it on social media. It's on the website. There's signs on the door. Kim and I have election training tomorrow with the Secretary of State's office. The town clerk's office will be closed.
All right.
License your dogs.
License your dogs. License your dogs, everybody.
So Mary and Jamie.
Mary.
Clark.
Okay. I wonder if there's a way for us to make that a little bit bigger so I can actually see it. So Mary and Robin.
Robin.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. Just as a member of the Planning Commission, I would just like to say that I personally would welcome participation by any or all members of the select board. We miss you, Eileen, and your input, and Lionel's yours on the energy committee, but further participation from the select board would be welcome, at least from my perspective. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Jamie.
I heard Howard say it, but I wanted to add my voice. I got the kids to drive back and look at Town Hall the other day and all the beautiful stonework, and just wanted to say we were all clapping. So thank you for all that great work. It looked awesome.
All right. I think we should say thank you to Paul Bemis.
Yes.
All right, is there other public comment online?
There is just a clarification.
Yeah,
It was said that I am iPhone. I am not iPhone. I'm listed among the participants as my name because I am myself today. iPhone 69 is someone else.
okay, thank you. They've seemed to have put their hands down, so thanks for that clarification.
They're not around anymore.
Okay. Is there any more comment in the room? Any more comment online? Okay, hearing none. Moving on to town manager's report.
So quickly, there is a select board training on May 11th, legal and effective meetings. I know Eileen and Eric are in the series already. I can sign you up, Peg. I can sign you up, Charlie, to Zoom. Now, the series is being recorded. So the question is, do you want to wait and do the second parts first and then, no? Okay.
You mean catch up?
Catch up, yes.
Well, okay, what is this, the updates?
I think they're pretty discreet, so I don't think you need to see the first two to watch the next one. They're discrete subjects, so.
They tend to run them purposefully that
Yeah.
way so that people can jump in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next Wednesday.
So May 11th.
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Is it Tuesday?
I thought it was Tuesday.
It is.
I'm not sure.
Right there.
No, Wednesday, May 11th.
Okay.
9 to 12. So I can sign them both up. Charlie, you
Yes.
too?
Yeah. That's fine.
And you will get like a confirmation to your emails.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Highway Department, we are grading. And I just want to announce that the price of diesel right at the moment is $6.09 at the pump. I went back into the WEX statements. At the end of March, diesel was $4.99 a gallon. Mid-April, it was up to $5.10 a gallon. So there's $1.10 per gallon increase within a month. So, Brian and I had a little chat. The grader will make it out to every road, and it will get to Mountain View too. But he's gonna make sure that the grader gets out there at least one run. But he will be looking at, not that we have to maintain the roads. So, both budgets are close, and we still gotta get through general maintenance until the end of June. But we're gonna monitor it. It is what it is, and
Exactly.
we have to have diesel.
Can't change it.
I have noticed that the fire department is not running like they were, and I can tell from all the gas slips that come in every month. So their travels have been lower, and they're in a different budget, but I just wanted to let the public know about the diesel prices. So grants and aid, Brian Harlow, road superintendent, and myself met with Jeff Nugent in the state. And Brian went out with Wyndham Regional Commission and the state to walk part of Putney Mountain Road and Brook Road, for the grants and aid monies. And It's really difficult being in a rural town, and we have like 60 priority segments that need to be completed before 2025. It's probably not gonna happen. It's a little unrealistic, and there's actually areas on the road that you can't even put a ditch in because it's so narrow, or the river's right there, or a brook. So they did site visits in Putney, and then they're gonna come back with the report, and they're gonna help us the best they can, but at least they understand, our terrain down here, because with the dirt roads, it's a lot harder. So that
Grants and aid tends to be for the purchase of material and then we can meet it with having our match.
correct.
Is we do in labor and trucking, et cetera, but it's for purchase of aggregate for the use of ditching and stonework, et cetera.
Right, so for this year, $15,150 is what is coming from the state, and then the town matches $5,050. And like Josh said, it's usually in kind with labor. Grants for the highway department, the structures grant, we were 4th on the list. Well, another town is not prepared to do a structures grant this year. So the state asked if we would like to do it, and Brian responded with a yes. We have until 2024 to complete the work. So this is a $200,000 grant, and he's looking at Westminster Road by the horse farm, right on the flats. And 10% from the town is a match. So again, probably be in kind.
So this is a grant that we've just received, we didn't have to go out for it. We had gone out for it.
Well, we did.
Okay.
We applied for it, but we were 4th in line.
Gotcha.
And with that other town not being prepared, we'll be prepared to do it.
Nice.
So that's another culvert off our list.
Yeah.
Other grants, Putney Mountain, there's a request for support. I'm working with Pat right now, and I'll be coming to the select board on May 18th with those letters of support. It is like, almost like the URSA grant that they applied for. They did not get that grant for the Putney Mountain Trail system. Equitable and Inclusive Communities Grant. I'm wondering if the Equity and Inclusion Committee is going to go after this grant. Is Swift still?
Yeah, I'm here. Peg emailed me and sent it to me. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I think it might be an agenda addition for our Friday meeting. My first thought is using it for the mural, for our permanent mural, as that's, or maybe also for some of the cost of surveying towns. And I haven't had a chance to look at details of what it can be used for, but I think it will likely come up on Friday. I'm going to add it to our agenda.
Okay, so the timeline, Swift, on that, it's a rolling, basis. So when the money is gone, then they won't be able to award.
I will, top of my list. Grants are always the top.
All right, thank you. Municipal Roads General Permit Equipment Grant. So we did go after that as well. Brian's found a leaf blower. The state will give us $5,600 towards that, and the town matches $1,400. The leaf blower is $9,295. So I will bring that to the board on May 18th with all the details.
That's the one we had applied for quite a while ago, is that correct?
No, this one just came out it was like extra money, and it just like, here's an equipment grant, and this is what you can use it for, so.
Good.
The municipal planning grant for the town plans, so $22,000 and from the state, and the town matches $2,200. The planning commission is active with this grant right now. They have sent out a request for qualifications for a planning consultant, and right now there's a draft request for qualifications for a natural resources planning consultant. That request for qualifications is on our website, and I've sent it over to VLCT so we can spread it around the state and see if we can get qualified people to do this work. So if anybody's interested, they can go to the website and read the RFQ. There also is still one vacancy on the Planning Commission, and if anybody's interested, this is a very important commission right now, and they're doing a lot of work, and having an extra person step up would be wonderful. The V-Trans Alternatives Grant, again, this is Planning Commission. We were awarded a $20,000 grant. There's a $5,000 match. I have not seen the agreement yet. They're a little slow getting paperwork to us. But I'm in no hurry right now because my plate's full. Summer Matters Grant, the town was not awarded the grant. We applied for $52,151. And we did not get that this year. And we don't have an option to send it in a second time like we did last year. So that benefited the pool, the library, Putney Cares, and Food for Kids. But the food shelf is going to try to provide the food for kids for the summer. But unfortunately, we won't be able to have free swim or free swim lessons. Mm-hmm. So, and we are looking for lifeguards. So all those young teenagers, if you're looking for something to do this summer, please contact Beverly Wright or myself, and we can get you a position at the pool.
Are there places to get training through the pool if you're not certified, or do they need to get that elsewhere?
Yes, so Beverly Wright is a certified lifeguard teacher. There's a special name for it, Swift. But she does all the classes. So, I mean, we talked about scholarships too. But the certification is not cheap.
No.
It's like $200, and then if it's a renewal, it's like half price, and these kids end up absorbing that cost.
Yeah.
So, but all public pools are struggling to get lifeguards. Town of Brattleboro, Vernon.
Yeah.
So. And the last item I have on this list is the appeal for the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust project. That's in the environmental court. So statement of questions were due, they're going to be due May 6th from the appellant. And then the hearing on motion to stay and status conference is May 9th at 1 p.m., which is a Monday. The town's not involved in this, but I will just keep the board in the know.
Okay. So we don't have to have anybody there? Or,
No, but the town attorney is, he gets notifications too from the court.
okay.
Is it a public hearing?
I've never been to environmental court. It's all online now. And any documents that have to go to the court are all uploaded, so I just don't know how it works.
Are the hearings public?
Yeah.
I would think they would need to be, but I'm not
Yeah, I'm
100%
not,
sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
when they used to be in person, you would be able to go to a courtroom. wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But it depends on what the hearing is about. You might want to just contact the environmental court and ask.
So that's all I have.
Questions from the public?
1 second. Is there discussion among the select board on the town manager's report? No? All right, comments from the public. Mr. Fairman?
Question for our town manager. Regarding the appeal in the matter of the Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust project, who is the attorney for the appellant?
That would be the,
I believe they're representing
I
themselves.
think so,
Yeah.
at least as far as we were notified, they're representing themselves.
Well, the information you have received from the court probably would tell you. Is there anyone identified other than the people, the citizens of Putney?
There's only one person identified.
Yeah, there's only one appellant, and then there's a bunch of interested parties. But it's the last time that I saw anything, the only attorneys that were involved were Wyndham Windsor Housing and the town of Putney.
Thank you.
Are there other comments from the public on the town manager's report? All right, hearing none, moving on to select board items, new business. The first order of business is to become the liquor commissioners, to review approve Putney Mountain Winery LLP first, third, and outside licenses. And this is Jonathan.
Yes, this is a renewal from licenses that they've had before. Putney Mountain Winery has a distiller's license, which doesn't involve local control at all, but they'd like to be able to serve. They built a new patio. I like it that they bring people to town who hopefully spend money in other places. And I did check this afternoon with the treasurer's office. The water and sewer is paid, even though it's billed to the landlord. They rent from Basketville. And it's nice to have, we had Basketville for years and years and years. It's nice to have somebody in there with a place to stop.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2022 liquor license renewal application from Putney Mountain Winery and Spirits.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the liquor license renewal for Putney Mountain Winery. Is there discussion on the board?
I just would love to know more about what the outdoor options are for when one has that.
They're not planning to get going until around Memorial Day, but they built the new patio on the south side. And I don't know exactly what they have planned. My guess is it's going to be like the Gleanery, where they might have a few tables out there where you can enjoy a Putney Mountain Winery product.
Great, so not just out the front door there where they had tables, like
They built
barrels.
They built a new patio there.
Great.
Any other discussion? Is there public comment on the liquor commissioners? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Next is the Declaration of Inclusion.
The originals are in the
In the packet.
Thank you very much.
Who's presenting this? Mike, is that why you're here? All right, go
I
ahead.
can start. I can start, and actually we have a surprise guest who I want to invite to speak if they want to. Maybe you can give me a nod of your head if you're interested. Al, if I invite you to speak, would you like to, Al? Not first, but in a moment. Just give me a thumbs up, or.
Only if Michael wants us to. I think
Okay.
Marcus is here,
Great.
so it's Michael's program.
Okay. Well, this is about the Declaration of Inclusion for folks that haven't heard of that. It was a movement that was started by Al Wakefield, who surprised he's here, which I'm so thank you for inviting him and thank you for being here, Al. In Vermont, as a way of starting these statements of inclusion in municipalities and organizations that proclaim an inclusive environment and also commit to action on that statement. So this was brought to us by various people. It was brought by Karen Astley and Jamie Comtois after the town fair by VLCT, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And then Interfaith Action brought it to us as well through Mike. And we've been discussing it at our meetings. And want to give Mike and or Al an opportunity to talk a little bit about the history of it and where it started from. Either of you that would want to do that. Al, you're not prepared, or you are, it's your work, but I don't want to put you on the spot either.
Well, it's okay. Bob is here, and Bob had intended to be here. I wasn't
hi.
supposed to be here.
Sorry, I don't know you, Bob. Hi, Bob.
Well, let me introduce Bob. Bob Harnish, he was the proprietor of the Cortina Inn here in Mendon, which was at one point the most prestigious inn in the area. It does not exist any longer, at least not under Bob's leadership. And Bob, a year and a half or so ago, because of his cousin's involvement in Franklin, that developed a Declaration of Inclusion, came to me to see if I had an interest in participating with him in bringing that across the state so that all 246 towns or so would adopt a Declaration of Inclusion. And if you've not had a chance to read it, I hope you have. It's on our website, and it's in some materials that have been forwarded to you. But Bob is the person. He's the guy that generated this, and let me just ask Bob to say whatever Bob wants to say, and then I'll tune in, and I'm sure Mike will as well. Okay.
Oh,
you're mute, Bob.
Yes, is that better?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Al. Good to be here, and good to have the town of Putney have an equity and inclusion committee. That's excellent, and sounds like you're very proactive, and we're happy that you've heard about our Declaration of Inclusion and are presenting it to your select board. Does the select board have our executive summary? Do you know?
Yep, we did.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Bob, what I should say is that,
That's right.
yeah, the Equity and Inclusion Committee here in Putney amended this to add some pieces of it. And so it's not exactly as it was as you started it, but it's been a community effort here to what we presented to the select board.
And I'll read it in a little bit, but Bob, it'd be great to feel a little bit about kind of the heart of this, of what drove you to start this as a bit of a movement here and hopefully in other states.
Well, thank you. I guess I've always been, concerned about marginalized communities and in our midst, and certainly, there are many disparaged groups that exist, and we would hope that towns will adopt our statement and consciously become or try to become non-discriminatory and to let the world know that they welcome people, and certainly Vermont needs new people to maintain our economy and our infrastructure in a population that's growing older. So I think at this point I'd like to let Mike and you go ahead.
Thanks so much for being here. It's great to have you both.
I look forward to hearing what word crafting you have done with our proposed statement of inclusion.
Thank you. Not much, a little.
Well,
Mike, do you want to add anything? Yeah.
Sure. I wanted to share that I'm here wearing my other hat outside of the legislature, outside of the State House. I work for Vermont Interfaith Action. It's a faith-based group that organizes churches and faith-based groups, communities to social action. And it's part of a national group called Faith in Action. And we are, one of the projects we're undertaking here in Windham County is to get involved with the Declaration of Inclusion. And one of the things I have been proud to say is that Putney is ahead of the game here. One of the suggestions is that towns start an Equity and Inclusion Committee. So we are moving ahead, but we don't want to assume we don't have work to do. We do. So there's some people from Putney. Guy Wood is here. He's part of our faith group. He's a Putney resident, part of the Brattleboro area Jewish community. I can't see everyone else here, but this is a collaborative project. We're going to go around towns, churches, civic groups. We're scheduled to meet with Brattleboro Rotary in a couple of weeks. We're just trying to spread the good word and pretty much affirm our values. These are tender times, they're reactionary times, and I think these are great opportunities for people to come together and affirm the values that we hold and how we can act on them. So I'm going to ask Al if he wants to chime in here, because I met Al. Actually, we haven't actually met in person yet, but we've been hanging out online through the Racial and Social Equity Caucus in the legislature, and he's been one of the citizen participants and provided some great leadership. So it's been a pleasure to get to know him. So Al?
Well, thanks, Mike. We're really pleased that the Interfaith organization has helped us take this on. We've been working with the Vermont Chamber of Commerce, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the NAACP, and the Social Equity Caucus to help us bring this to the 246 towns. We're nowhere near all of those as yet, but over the last year and 3 or 4 months or so, some 43 towns have adopted the Declaration of Inclusion. And so, we think that's good movement, although there's a long way to go. The fact that you've formed an equity committee, I think, is way ahead of the game, which means you've done some really serious thinking about this. And while we're looking at numbers and saying, well, with 43 towns across the state, that represents 225,000 citizens of the state. That's roughly 1/3 of the state, which is a nice statistic. But there's a long way to go. And so when the Interfaith community said, we will support you on that, that was big for us, because the faith community is so important in all of our lives. Putney, we would be pleased to have Putney adopt whatever you've come up with. We've said that while we think our declaration is a good model, every town is different. Every environment has its own unique needs, its own unique qualities. And as long as what you develop meets the spirit and the intent of the original, that we will certainly support that and add it to our list. Lastly, next week is Inclusion Week in Vermont, proclaimed in a proclamation by Governor Scott. And he as well proclaimed a Declaration of Inclusion, which is similar to ours. And so there are activities in various towns and in companies as well next week, celebrating belonging, welcoming, inclusion, if you will. So we'd be pleased to have Putney be amongst that group. We'd get you in before next week so that you'd be part of the celebrating crowd.
Thank you, Al. Does anyone else want to share anything? I just want to share a little bit about what we've been doing in Putney the past month or so in this. I don't know if anyone else in Interfaith or Bob or Al wants to share anything else, or Mike. Okay. So our last meeting with Equity Inclusion, we invited some local organizations to come and speak. While one of our goals in the Equity Inclusion is that weaving of our communities and fostering an environment for more learning as well as more support on equity inclusion, we brought this as a central piece to kind of anchor that work as a starting point. We met with the Putney Food Shelf and Putney Community Cares, as well as Next Stage, and all of them very easily were sort of, yes, great, we already have some piece in place, but we love this idea, and no other businesses have been reached out to that might be interested in signing on to it in their own individual way as an organization or a business as well. We also talked a bit about what action might look like, because this is just the smallest little piece of signing a Declaration of Inclusion is just the very first small step. And then this piece of what does it mean to create an inclusive environment in a business and in an organization in a town. So we're going to talk about that at our next meeting, possibly with the action of getting the mural done. We've talked about the vertical mural somewhere in town, as well as trying to scramble and maybe get a small event together for next week. Mike and I were talking briefly of maybe a vigil for lives lost this year of marginalized groups or something like that. So hopefully we'll pull something together for next week, and we'll be discussing that on Friday at our meeting at 12:15. It's on Zoom. Our agenda is on the website. So I guess our next goal is really to, once this is ratified, is to present it to, my hope is to get a list of businesses from Karen and either send out emails or even just start calling folks and say, like, here's this thing, do you want to sign on? And really reach that as high a percentage as possible for businesses in Putney, having a declaration inclusion statement of their own or of the one that's drafted here. And I want to read it to you all. And I am going to read the version that is not in the like ratified format that you would form a resolution on. Let me just pull it up. Sorry, I had it up. And this is how it goes. So Putney Declaration of Inclusion. Putney welcomes all persons regardless of, but not limited to, race, color, religion, language, national origin, ancestry, sex, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, veteran status, familial status, economic status, physical or neurological ability. We reject oppression and discrimination in all forms and commit to a fair and equal treatment and commit to fair and equal treatment in our community. We commit to ongoing growth as an equitable, inclusive, welcoming community. This declaration is but a step in the ongoing work towards inclusive action. Putney will work to uphold this statement in what we create, decisions we make, and in the policies of this town. So I believe Karen has format. I guess before we talk about formatting, I want to turn it over to the select board and just any response, discussions, thoughts, dreams, hopes.
Okay, so thank you for your presentation. It was great. So what is the mood of the board on this?
I'll make a motion that we that we adopt the resolution of declaration of inclusion for the town of Putney.
You're talking about the one that,
Yes, we have a written declaration.
okay.
Is that the same one she just read?
Yes, it's formatted as a resolution as opposed to it has some whereases and some resolved in it. But other than that, it contains.
Can you say that a bit more clearly for the public, or I can describe it a little bit? So
do you want to read it?
Sure. So the way it reads for the town of Putney is pretty much exactly what Swift said, with some whereases and a resolve in it. That so it's Town of Putney Declaration of Inclusion, whereas the town of Putney, Vermont welcomes all persons, regardless of but not limited to race, age, color, religion, language, national origin, ancestry, sex, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, veteran status, familial status, economic status, physical or neurological ability, and whereas we reject oppression and discrimination in all forms and commit to fair and equal treatment in our community, and whereas this declaration is but a step in the ongoing work toward inclusive action, Putney will work to uphold this statement in what we create, decisions we make, and in the policies of this town. Therefore, resolved that we, the select board of the town of Putney, adopt this declaration of inclusion and commit to ongoing growth as an equitable, inclusive, and welcoming community. Adopted this third day of May, but it would be fourth, yeah.
All right, we have a motion that's been made. Do I have a second? Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the Town of Putney Declaration of Inclusion resolution. Is there further discussion among the board?
Yes. Eileen, in the first whereas clause, as Josh alluded to, I think we ought to add age.
That was an odd slip that made sense as soon as I said it. I thought,
so that's okay. So where would we put it? In the order of, does it matter?
I don't know. I don't think it matters.
Right, so
it's all of those I think are equal.
Okay, so we want to add age to.
Let's put it before language. Just, I'll make a suggestion.
Sure.
Age language.
Madam Chair?
I'm sorry, who was that, Mike?
It is.
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate that addition, and I'm going to call Al on this because I'm going to share Al's age right now because he shares it with us. Al's 83, and I'm surprised he didn't put that in there himself.
All right, is there further discussion among the board?
I have a question, and this came, some people will probably remember that this came up, and I'm just interested in comment on it as to why political affiliation is not included. Is there a good and or obvious reason for that? That was a conversation that came up in our initial discussion about forming a committee, and then in various discussions after that. And I just, is there a reason it's not included?
Al?
Yeah, the reason is we're talking about marginalized groups, political. There are two reasons. One is whether you're Democrat or Republican or an independent or progressive, you're not a member of a marginalized group, as we generally accept that. And then secondly, we've tended to stay away from political anythings as we move through this, feeling like this is really the right thing to do from a moral standpoint. And that we want to make this as welcoming as possible without getting into, discussions of political affiliations, et cetera.
Thank you.
I'll also share that everything on here, except for maybe veteran status, is not a choice. And I think the political affiliation is something that people choose.
Is there more discussion on the board?
My only comment is I love it and I support it, but I kind of laugh that we say physical or neurological as if our neurological systems aren't part of our physical being.
I tried to find some language in there and I struggled with it. So if someone has another recommendation on how to, because I do want to specifically put neurodivergence in there, and yeah. I don't know if someone else has another way of wording it.
I don't know.
I knew what you meant, but I get the.
Well, is this a substitute for cognitive? Or should we add
maybe cognitive? That's different than cognitive.
Okay, can I make a proposal?
Sure.
How about physical ability or neurological diversity?
All right. So
love it.
So physical ability or neurological diversity. Yeah, that gets to it. All right. Are there more suggestions among the board? All right. Are there further comments online?
Eric McGowan's name is not spelled right.
Oh.
That needs to be correct.
But it's close. All right. Are there comments in the room? All right.
I have my hand up, Eileen.
Two hands up.
There are two hands up. I unfortunately can't see these names. Okay, so Mary, can you, Mary, you're up.
I didn't, was there anything about mental disability in there? Mental,
Just if I could add, I'm just going back to the original, and when you changed it, I think maybe you inadvertently left out some things because age is in there. Age is in the original, and disability is in the original as well. And disability was intended to cover both mental and physical disability. So
glad you're here.
Okay.
So I'd like to suggest that we've already included age, so I'd like to suggest that we also include disability.
Well, if we take out physical and just leave disability.
There you go.
And then have.
And neurological diversity.
Okay.
That sounds right.
Okay. Sounds good. Jamie.
Jamie Comtois, Putney. It is just really an honor to be in the presence of Al and Bob and this work that's being done statewide, and that Putney would be a part of it. I've had an opportunity to hear Al speak about this for, I think, a year, Al, as you've done work with others around the state of Vermont, and that Putney would join in this work is really powerful. So thank you for bringing it to us.
Okay, is there more public comment online? Any hands I'm not seeing?
I guess this is Swift.
Hi, Swift.
So I think the only piece that I would ask, and I don't know if it's discussion now or I think this is the beginning, and I'm curious, maybe a few of you have comments on what action, maybe it's some of the new select board members, or it doesn't have to be, on like what action on this looks like, or what committing to growth as an equitable and inclusive community looks like. So we can kind of really see where we're going with this more than just getting the paper signed. And I know that that's, yes, the primary reason for today, but I guess I'd be curious of a few comments from the board on what that might look like to you all, what action or next steps might look like.
Well, I'd like to bring that back to the Equity and Inclusion Committee. That's to put it strongly, that's your job. We all probably have ideas, but it would be really great if you came up with some recommendations for us to act on. Does anybody else have any?
If I could make a suggestion.
One second, I'm asking the select board right now. I'll get to you in a second.
I think we could also put that under, it could fall into the category of select board goals.
Right.
We could have a breakdown of select board goals.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was Al was speaking?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's great, go ahead.
If I could make a suggestion, in the packet that you have on the website, VT Declaration of Inclusion, there's an implementation section in there under resources, and it suggests various things that you can do immediately to implement the declaration, things that you can do after X number of months, and then long-term things which are ongoing. If you put the whole thing together, it begins to look like a complete program of implementation. So I'd recommend you take a look at that, number one. And number two, the ideal program that Susanna Davis put together for the state really contains a lot of items, things that towns can do as well. So I think between those two things, you'll have a lot of opportunities to think about what you want, what to do, what fits best with Putney's needs. And I think it's fair that it goes back to the committee. But I really like what you're doing. We like what you're doing in terms of moving as quickly as you can from adopting just words, if you will. It's a commitment, but implementation, the doing piece is really where it all is. And lastly, I'd say if you look at the town of Milton, Don Turner there, who's the town manager, as far as we know, has done the most obvious, most conspicuous implementation of getting some activities and things going. But the town of Middlebury, if you look in that same packet, there are some things which they have done as well. So there's a lot of information available.
Okay, thank you. Where were we? Is there further comment online? In the room? Any further discussion among the select board? Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the Town of Putney Declaration of Inclusion resolution with the changes noted. All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll wait for a clean copy to sign.
Yeah. Okay, moving on, we've got the Wilson Wetlands Committee announcement. And that's you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right, now you're up.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jane Kolias, and I'm on the Wilson Wetland Stewardship Committee along with Ann. And we shared with the select board last September that we were going to be applying for a grant through the Flood Resilient Community Fund. We did that. We submitted the grant in January, and we were notified about a week ago that we were approved for the grant.
Right.
And it's $31,500. And this grant is for a scoping project along Sackett's Brook and the Wilson's Wetland, and that's to evaluate the relationship of the brook to its floodplain, to the geological features, how it reacts to man-made structures, and with kind of a focus on flood resiliency for the community and protecting the town's well source, which is in the Wilson Wetland. And it probably would mean that we would have a geomorphic study done of the area, which would look at Sackett's Brook and its flow and the vegetation and sediment, and also include a hydraulic analysis of future meanderings, if nothing happens, where the brook might go, what the consequences might be. So we've been awarded the money. The next step is that we're going to do a request for proposal that Ann and I are putting together, which would put the project out for bid, and we're hoping to do that ASAP, realistically, probably in the next couple weeks.
And Karen is helping us with that, as well as Wyndham Regional Commission.
All right, great.
So do we have any questions about that?
Congratulations.
That's good. Very excited about it. We have another announcement of good news. Last fall, the Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee started a fundraiser to raise a modest amount of money, about $2,500, to do some things down at the wetland to help it enhance the visitor experience, if you will. One was put up a kiosk. Another was to design and have a poster printed for the kiosk. And a third item was to put some fencing along the back of the parking area to deter dumping. There's been a lot of dumping down there, and also to protect a kind of a wet spot that's in the back of the parking area. And we reached our goal this week, so we're really excited about that and appreciated everybody's response and support of this effort.
That effort was totally from residents donating.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Is that the poster that was out here in the town hall? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it was, and it was pretty much driven through social media, a couple of flyers around town, and word of mouth.
And Mary Quinn talking to a lot of people.
Right. Does anybody have any questions about the grant?
I just would like to add one thing, because Lionel was here talking about the problems they're having with the flooding behind the school, which really has exacerbated over the years. And we will talk to the consultant about that, because the question is the stream actually going to start shifting its channel in that area, which would impact the boardwalk they're talking about?
And I guess the boardwalk could theoretically impact the flow of the stream, depending on how it's built.
Yeah, but predicting how that, as Jane said, predicting how that stream might move, that would be an area we'd be particularly concerned with.
And we've been communicating through this whole process with Lionel, keeping him up to speed on what we're doing and getting his input. And we'll continue to do that.
And we're just concerned that wetland and how it used to function really protect us during Tropical Storm Irene, because wetlands do that, and streams that can access the floodplains protect the surrounding areas and the areas downstream specifically, which is the village center. And it's really changed radically since then. And it's something that has to be put back in order somehow.
So, and this scoping project is basically to have an entity come in and say, this is what's happening, here are some suggestions of how you might, how you can work to, what might be done to help this whole ecosystem and everything work better together. And then there would be a whole nother effort to look for grants to actually have that work done. So that's down the road.
And holding a public meeting about what's been discovered is part of the scope.
Right. Okay.
As resources for you, when you identify somebody that you're working, I mean, when the town well system was designed, I think it was Otter Creek Engineering did a bunch of work. Okay, so you already have access to that. And I mean, wait, I think there was also, I want to say it was A&R did work a number of years ago on what feeds Sackett's Brook further up and what the areas were. So we have quite a bit of information, and how to access that, I don't know, but that would be valuable information to pass on to somebody that's looking at the
I will check what the A&R information is, because that I didn't know about.
I feel like I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure they explored it a number of years ago for various different features.
They used to have a stream gauge up there.
Yeah.
US Geological Survey did.
Yeah.
How large, what geographical area are you looking at?
Okay.
From where to where?
Yeah, so did you get the package?
We've got a map. The wetland is about 100 acres, and if the road, Sand Hill Road runs right through it.
Yeah.
Pretty much in the middle. And it goes all the way up past the cornfield, Westminster Road, north past the cornfield. The cornfield's actually part of the wetland. And then it comes all the way down to the bridge here.
Yeah.
The bridge and the dam in the middle of the village.
Yeah.
And it's the hydrologic soils that are not indicated as wetland on the map are also included, because that's all part of the floodplain.
I just have to say, this is such an interesting job already. It's just amazing, just amazes me.
A lot of variety.
Unbelievable. I mean, I'm just like, thank you for all these people who are doing this work.
Hope you continue to feel that way.
Well, it's been a week.
Second day on the job.
It's a whole year after all. Thanks.
So we don't need any action.
We don't need to do anything, okay. But it's great news that you got this grant, and we're really hoping we need to do something over there, and this is the first step.
Yeah.
Thank you for your support.
All right, is there any discussion, well, actually, is there any public comment online?
There's a hand up, Howard Fairman.
Mr. Fairman.
Yes, thank you. My question, I guess I have two questions regarding the $31,500 grant. Who is the legal recipient and who is the legal custodian of this money?
Did you hear that?
I did. So the money is actually received by the town of Putney and managed with our usual funds.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there more public comment online? Okay.
Sorry, one other thing that and you may have already been thinking about this too, but we've often had discussions about the structure of Sand Hill Road within the wetlands, and if you're having somebody in looking specifically, having further conversation about whether there are different ways we should be treating that road that we haven't already thought about, I think that would
That should be part of the whole assessment.
I would agree.
The geomorphic assessment of the stream will know all of the human infrastructure and the interactions.
Yeah, good.
All right, is there further discussion among the board?
This is Swift.
All right, go ahead, Swift.
I I know at a previous select board meeting, it had been discussed the possibility of closing Sand Hill Road. I know that there wasn't any action on that. There was some discussion. Is that any part of like this, the next steps? Is there anybody that's moving towards that being a goal still, or is that sort of paused?
In the scope of our project.
Okay.
We'll see what suggestions come from a consultant about how to deal with the interaction between the road and the wetland and the road and the stream. And I don't think that will go off the table, but it won't be part of, he's not going to make a recommendation as to leave the road open or close the road. But I don't see that issue going anywhere. It's a political issue, not a scientific one at this point.
It's also a safety issue for the town.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
the speeding that's occur on that road, yeah.
Well, no, what I'm talking about, having separate access to parts of town that we don't have if that road gets closed. So
let's just get into issues.
But there's different, separate issues, yes.
So the short answer, Swift, is that it's not gone anywhere.
It'll be in discussion for years to come.
Yeah. Is there more discussion online? If not, I'd like to move on.
Yes, there is.
Mr. Fairman.
Yes, regarding the closure of Sand Hill Road, as one who walks the village twice a day, most days, when the Route 5 bridge over Sackett's Brook was closed last summer, the only road, the only local road between the northern and southern parts of Putney and the Route 5 area was Sand Hill Road. So, for example, if emergency vehicles from the Putney Fire Department needed to get beyond Sackett's Brook, the only way to get there was via Sand Hill Road.
Yeah.
So we can't close Sand Hill Road.
All right, so noted. Is there any other public comment? All right, moving on to the Rescue Inc. contract.
So in your packet is the contract for the next 3 years. I will inform the board that for 22-23, well, the cost for the year is $62,860.34, which is lower than what we're currently paying for this year. And I'll explain it's because of the population. So our current contract, the population is $2,702 at an assessment of $24.02. So for the upcoming fiscal year, the contract is based on 2,617 for population, and the assessment did not go up. So it stayed the same. And that was part of the conversation we had with Rescue before this contract came out. So they were gonna level fund, but it went down because our population went down.
Okay.
So it will be lower. And then for the second and the third year, it just increased like 1%.
But they're assuming the same population number. Would that change?
It won't change until after year 3.
So this is set in stone for 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So even at the third year of this contract, we'll be paying $64,116.50 compared to what we're paying this year at $64,902.04. So because of the population decrease, our contract went down. Now, in this packet also, you notice that there is a meeting on May 19th at 6:30 at Brattleboro Rescue regarding what will happen after our 3-year contract. So I am surprised that even though what transpired in Brattleboro, he stayed to his word, rescue stayed to their word, and I think it's great. That says a lot. We also are tonight looking at 2 candidates that have showed interest for Rescue Inc. Town representative, so the board will be looking at that later in this meeting. We definitely need a town representative at this point because we don't know what's going to happen in the future.
All right, so is anybody inclined among the select board to attend this meeting?
Tom Goddard will be attending.
It says, yeah, I'm sure, but it does say select board member here. I know they're asking for select board members. So is there anybody who's got the time, willing, inclination to attend this meeting? Can you assign one of you?
Eric? I'm sorry, I know, but you kind of have a handle on, rescue, EMS, fire.
Yeah, I'd go. Sure, is it a Zoom or is it?
It's in person.
It's in person, okay. Yeah,
Sure.
all right, you better volunteer.
Thank you, but if something happens and there's a conflict, just let us know, okay?
Yeah, sort of.
Thank you for volunteering up there.
That's how volunteering works. All right.
So I'll make a motion to approve the 3-year contract as presented by Rescue for the next service years.
So second.
Second. Third.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for Rescue Inc. for the next 3 years. Do I hear further discussion among the board?
I just have one quick question. In the general fund ledger that was distributed, where is the line item
It's
that
under,
corresponds to the cost of the contract, at least for the next year? Is it on page 7?
it's not in this is a trial balance for the current year. So, but it is in here under public safety on page 7.
Okay.
You'll see Rescue Inc. So the budget was $64,903, and we've spent to date $54,085.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. There'll be more reports coming out, and it'll show you like next year and the year after.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Karen, did you have something else you need?
I did. In the past, the select board has designated me to sign the contract. Is that your wish?
I'd like to add that to my motion to move to accept the contract from Rescue Inc. and to assign Karen as the signature for it.
Okay, second. So it's been moved and seconded to adopt or to approve the Rescue Inc. contract for the next 3 years and designate Karen as the signer. Is there any other discussion among the board? Is there a comment online?
I don't see any.
No hands?
No hands.
Comment in the room? Okay. Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Okay, next piece is a letter to the select board from Craig Goldberg regarding Route 5 property.
Does somebody want to read it?
I'll read it. So this was on 4/28/22. Dear Putney Select Board, I hope this finds you all well. Thank you all for your dedicated service to our town. I'm writing about the problem of the long-standing trash piled along the road on Route 5, along the right side of the road as you head north near Rounds Hill Road. I am sure you are aware of the property I'm referring to. I do not know the reasons why this problem has not already been addressed, but obviously there is or are some type of obstructions that has so far not permitted this mess to be cleaned up. This letter is to request that the board discuss a town ordinance or resolution or town meeting vote or whatever may be needed to give the necessary power to the town to enforce removal of the trash bags, junk, old cars, car parts, etc. from the side of the road. It is an eyesore, it is distracting to traffic, it is an embarrassment, it is a road hazard. I am quite sure that with a bit of research, one could discover what kinds of provisions other towns in New England have in place to make sure such conditions do not exist along their roadways. Thank you very much for your attention to this issue. If there is some way in which I can be of assistance in this matter, please let me know. Sincerely, Craig Goldberg, who lives on Town Farm Road, East Town Farm Road, in Putney. Is there discussion among the board?
Can I just update the board?
Yeah.
So Route 5 is a state highway. The state of Vermont is involved with the property owner, and it's a very slow process. And my office has a draft blight ordinance that was written probably a year ago. I had the town clerk, research some towns, because there are other areas in town as well. And so we can look at that. But I just wanted the board to know that the state is involved with that property.
And I believe Tom, as the health officer, Tom's been involved to some degree as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
At some point.
A small amount, but the state is trying to work with that property owner. I'm also in touch with the sister. So it's very sensitive. And I've been working slowly with her, but at least now I know there's siblings. And there is a concern.
Has that blight ordinance been enacted?
No.
No, it's draft.
We've had this conversation numerous times over the years. The challenge of it is, and I think that one thing in Craig's letter is that he states specifically have other towns in New England to make sure such conditions do not exist along their roadways. And the roadways are the ones that are noticeable. There are a lot of properties in Putney where people have a lot of personal belongings that their neighbors and or other observers might deem blight. And it's a complicated topic. I think when it has come up in the past, there has always been a question of then who becomes, enforcement is a huge issue. Enforcement, you will find the longer you're here, comes up again and again and again, because we really have no enforcement ability at all. The state in this case is involved, and that's probably as much about the vehicle aspect of it as anything else, but it's also because Route 5 is a state highway. But then becomes also the question of who's the decision maker as to what's a blighted property and what's not, and when do we step in, and if so, what does that look like, who pays for it, et cetera. So it may seem like, on the surface that you look at something like this and you say, this should just be dealt with. It's so much more complicated than that for a whole bunch of different reasons. And if we were to pass an ordinance, and I'm not arguing against doing that, but if we were to pass one, we would have to think pretty thoroughly about what the implications were for us as individuals if we were going to be the ones that made the decision-making body related, and or what the sort of liabilities for the town are, et cetera. Because we have other circumstances in town, another one currently, where the state is involved. And, often what we have discovered is that working in goodwill with people and over a long haul is much more effective than trying to force somebody to do something with their property, because as soon as they start to dig their heels in, it's a long losing battle. And the town we have typically opted against putting ourselves in that position, but tried to use the leverage and resources that we have in order to work through these things. only a couple times in my memory of my time on the board have we actually gone in. There are a couple locations we've gone in and actually physically cleaned up a property because of the dangers involved, but it's very rare and under very unusual circumstances. So just history on it.
Has the state ever intervened to the extent of compelling a person who happens to be involved to essentially address the situation?
As far as I know, the only ability they have is related to the junkyard ordinance, Karen, I think. So it's related to cars.
No, they have a little more.
They have more leeway, but
Yeah.
I think they're, I mean, as even with the state, they have enforcement issues and, you know, they don't have a lot of staff either.
Right.
So, you know, and I get the wish to clean up properties, that are less than ideal, but, and I'm not against an ordinance either, but I, don't want to pass an ordinance that we can't enforce.
Yeah.
Have other towns in the county encountered this problem, and how have they addressed it?
I don't know about the county, but I did do some research onto while I wasn't looking for blight, I was looking for junkyard ordinances. And there are several towns that have junk ordinances on paper. I don't know how their enforcement works. I don't know how it physically works or how it literally works. You know, I don't know if they really are enforcing those. But there are towns that have those out there.
The other thing too is, so cars, trucks, that's one thing, but when you have a hoarding concern, that's something totally different. So it's a very sensitive area, and you're right, there are more than one places in Putney, and there's more than one place on Route 5. But it's very delicate, and without enforcement, I mean, the health officer too, who's Tom Goddard, you know, is it unfit? Is it uninhabitable? You know, that's something, perhaps you can go down that path, but.
How do you tell somebody how to live in their property that pay
Right.
taxes in this town?
And then what,
Touchy subject.
and then if
Yeah.
you're gonna work on enforcement of it,
Exactly.
what are the actions you can take
Right.
realistically?
You know-
It's super complicated.
Yeah.
And people get overwhelmed with their situations too. And when they admit that, then you know it's a delicate situation.
I do have some hands up. Is there more discussion?
Yeah, I just wondered where the blight ordinance sits now. Like, you drafted it,
Yep.
but did it ever come to the select board?
Not that I know of.
Is it, or I'd love, is there a way to at least see it and just, and see how a blight ordinance would be drafted?
Sure.
And, you know.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Was that based on a model from VLCT?
I don't remember it.
I can't remember either.
Yeah, but no, I'm happy to share it. Because, I mean, it's in a draft format and we worked on it, so it's like, I'd like to see it, you know. If it can be implemented, fine, but, you know, that's the biggest question.
Well, it seems like that's the next step, is to at least look at an ordinance and maybe see what some other towns have done.
Right.
You know, because this can't, I mean, it's not unique to us.
No.
And ordinances and policies are a little different too. So an ordinance, you know, whether or not you have a constable or police department or sheriff's department, they can enforce that.
It's enforceable.
You know.
Right.
So having an ordinance is good, but then having, again, you know, they would have to notice that, or we would have to say, can you go? But then it's very.
And you're taxing on other resources. I mean, in this
Right.
case, our only enforcement option, because we don't have a constable, is the
Right.
Wyndham County Sheriffs.
Right.
The Wyndham County Sheriffs don't have the person's power to manage something of that scale either, and the complicated legal issues of involving law enforcement in a situation like that, so, but,
I'm
yeah.
kind of interested in seeing just even what the
Yeah.
definition of
Of what it
wetlands
looks
can
like.
be, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
can we at least, I mean, maybe if we can come up with a sense of what we're talking about,
Yeah.
then we can decide how to deal with it.
So it sounds like the board would maybe like to see a copy of it, and I don't know if we need to put it on an agenda in a little bit, but maybe just forward it to all of us so we can take a look at it.
Well, and it probably, largely because we're discussing it, if we're gonna have it, if we're gonna see it, it should be a public document.
Correct.
So we should have it as an agenda item, if nothing
Yes.
else, just to bring it to the light of day.
If one or two of you want to come see me in my office,
Yeah.
I'll share it with you.
We might also see, if it's not based on the VLCT thing, we might inquire
Right.
with VLCT to see what they
Yeah.
have for record.
Yeah, I can't remember, Josh, it's
I don't
been so
even
long.
remember, yeah.
And I tend to go to VLCT to see if there is a
Yeah,
template, and then we look at towns that are comparable to
Yeah.
us.
Right.
And then we adapt it that way.
Who drafted it?
I had John Johnson look at different towns, and we put one together. He does have a legal background.
He and I have chatted.
All right, I have 3 hands up, and I'm pretty sure Mary was the first one, so Mary, go ahead, or Robin.
Or both of us.
Yeah, hi, it's me again. Just a couple points of clarification that may or may not be useful, but also illustrate how difficult this is. I should say, by the way, that I live across the street from the property in question. Looking at the state regulations that specifically mention junkyards, they're very limited. The state regulation only covers commercial junkyards. And I believe that that's probably a reflection of how difficult it is to draft this in a state where people, among other things, value their personal freedom and variety of lifestyles. Secondly, I would suggest that when you look at what other towns have done in terms of resolution, that the subject of enforcement has already been mentioned. If inquiries could be made as to how specifically they are enforcing it in other towns. And lastly, I believe that Tom Goddard's involvement was limited to an occasion when the property owner wished to rent an apartment, and that made it much more clear cut as to the town or whatever outside authorities having some sort of right to step in. So, it's a thorny issue. I appreciate the fact that it's being addressed with sensitivity, and I would strongly second what Josh said about if this goes forward in any form of discussion, it needs to be an agenda item so that the property owner has the option to participate. And Mary also wished to say something. Thanks.
All right, Mary.
Yeah, Karen, didn't you tell me that the state, they really have only, it's their right of way on the road is what they would deal with, not necessarily the property itself?
Well, it is right on the road.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's what they would be concerned about, is the right of way.
Well, no, the state consultant that I'm working with is actually, he's been on the property.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's been in contact via, several letters. And I've been in contact with the sister, and she's aware that the state's involved as well.
Okay, I don't need to know more. Thank you.
Yeah, the other area, Mary, that the state could be involved is with if there's beyond X number of vehicles, and I can't remember what that currently is for, then it falls into the category of an illegal junkyard. And as Karen was saying, that specifically addresses commercial junkyards, but if you have more than a certain number of vehicles, then you are you're in violation if you don't have a commercial junkyard license. So, but again,
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. There's a lot going on. It's unfortunate.
Mr. Fairman.
Yes, I compliment you on an excellent and wide range and comprehensive discussion of this issue with just this one caveat. It's entirely hypothetical because it's all about a draft resolution that is in someone's file. So I take the liberty of suggesting that you grasp the nettle by actually putting a blight ordinance on your agenda when it can be debated by our Town of Putney Select Board and by members of the public when there actually is something under discussion, as opposed to why we could or could not do something if we ever got around to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jamie?
I've been thinking a lot about this in regards to Green Up Day, which is happening on Saturday. Per the town clerk's request, I activated the Putney Mutual Aid Network and invited folks to volunteer for sections of town to do road cleanup. And as I was driving around town, I was thinking about my trailer, and I was thinking about the Putney Mutual Aid Network and how one of the things that popped up was helping people move. And those with trucks and trailers, how critical it was that we could volunteer for our neighbors, and how that's a resource that not everybody has access to. So I'm not ready. I don't have the energy this spring, but I was thinking this fall, we could start thinking of a Green Up Day kind of extraordinaire, where we would have people with vehicles that could handle couches, chairs, large objects, volunteering to work with neighbors. And the commitment would be that we would work together in collaboration. If you physically couldn't move things yourself, that you would identify a friend or a family member who could physically help move items, and that someone would come and take that, and we could have some funds available for disposal costs, because I think that's really a critical part of this. I've noticed bringing some loads from our house that the cost can be really prohibitive in disposing things through the waste management system. And so I was thinking about it from a creative perspective of how we could collaborate as community through a volunteer network of folks who would be up for it before the snow flies in the fall. So it's a slightly different take on what you're discussing, but I will be posting on I Love Putney and other things, the sign up sheet for Green Up Day on Saturday. And one of the things I asked if it was okay that we did was, I have a field that says we have a large object on our road. For instance, I've found tires and stuff sometimes in different places that people might not be able to move themselves, that we could alert the town the location of, and then the town could come and support us with picking up the large object, particularly if it's not on someone's property and it's disposed of in a more public space or roadway area. So anyway, just putting that out there as a part of the conversation, because I think we could collaborate in a way that would really relieve some of the pressures that folks are facing in our community.
Okay, thank you. Is there discussion on the board about public comment? No? Is there any further public comment online? All right, hearing none, let's move on to the paving bid project increase.
Okay, so in your packet is a new quote from V.S.A. Brothers. So back on June 1st, 2021, V.S.A. gave us a price bid for paving Priest Drive and East Putney Falls and Houghton Brook. These are just, short segments. So the price back in 2021 was $113,240. Brian went back to the contractor because of the costs.
And just to be clear, we accepted that bid.
He did. Brian went back to the contractor to see if he was gonna stay with his original price. He cannot do that. In the new quote of $129,135, which is an increase of $15,895, is for the material. It's not the fuel, it's not the labor, it's just the material costs, because everything has gone up.
So,
The material costs for them is definitely based on fuel and other stuff.
Right, this is general
Double-edged
information for the board. I'm not looking to have you approve this. Brian knows the increase, and he will be able to absorb that in his budget. There is some surplus money in there. If the board recalls, we had paid off a loan payment a year early, which was about $28,000. So Brian's very aware of his budget and what he can and can't do. So he still wants to do these projects this year, knowing that next year it's gonna look a little different. Because every year there's $100,000 in the highway budget for paving. We can get a paving grant, but again, you're on that list, and wherever you fall, you may not get it. He knows the price of paving for next year is gonna be, there's gonna be an increase. You know, based on fuel and based on material.
So
this, go ahead, sorry.
the reason these didn't get, or at least some of them didn't get done last year is because of the flooding.
Yes.
So 'cause the highway department personnel were unable to do their, because they often have to do a lot of prep work, et cetera, before we can actually go ahead and pave. But I would also, just in the interest of transparency and so that Brian doesn't have, I would make a motion that we approve the increase in price and the expenditure by the highway department for this new bid.
It could go up with fuel prices keep going on.
Right. So that was a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the increase in the quote from Basin Brothers for paving projects for this year. Is there further discussion?
Question, these roadways, is this a one-time thing? Or in other words, every year, do the same roads have to be repaired, or the new roads are identified every year as appropriate?
Yes.
I think they're on a rotation, right?
Essentially, it's a rotation, and then based on assessment, you know, sometimes they last better than, I mean, for example, you know, unfortunately, Hickory Ridge got done last year, but then the flood happened and part of it got eroded, so, you know, circumstances occur. But it's basically, you know, you've witnessed West Hill get done in sections a couple times. It's a combination of sort of expected life expectancy and as needed. So, but it's a judgment call from the highway department.
Yeah, and my impression was that a lot of this didn't get done because of the flood as well, right?
Yeah.
That is correct.
We just
couldn't do it.
Yeah.
They are prepping Priest Drive. He's been up there already looking at culverts and marking the paved sections.
Yeah, and a big part of that is that we try as best as possible to replace culverts that are going to need to be replaced before we pave, because otherwise we're going to be cutting that pavement soon thereafter. We certainly, that happens sometimes, unfortunately, but we try to avoid it.
So question, authorizing signature?
Oh, to designate you?
Yes.
I will add as a friendly amendment that we would approve Karen Astley as the authorized signature as well. Friendly amendment, second.
Is there comment online about the paving project, or about the?
No hands.
No hands? All right. Is there further discussion here? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the quote by Basin Brothers and designate Karen as the signer. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. New highway equipment dump truck quote.
All right, so this quote was not in your packet earlier. I just got it today. I think on page 17 of 17.
What?
Oh, so trying to confuse us.
There's the quotation. This is a single axle. This is from, I'll say Patriot. No, ATG Patriot, which is in Westminster. Western Star 4700 SF. The price before tax, $120,823. We are tax exempt. The trade-in allowance for the truck for trading is $37,000. So the balance due is looking like $83,823. The second quote, which is the next page, HP Fairfield, this is for the dump body, for a total of $84,950 on the dump body. And that, where are my notes? Young people. Oh, I have it too. $168,773 total.
And what did what's our article on this, 160?
Oh, I didn't look at that.
That would be the highway reserve fund.
Yeah, but we had an article for it.
For this expenditure?
Yeah. Sorry. I meant to get that, and I don't have it. I don't have a town report.
Is it online?
Kim might have one. Kim, do you have a town report? Thank you.
Boy, ask him, you shall receive.
I meant to do that. Thank you very much. Let's see. $175,000 for a new highway truck at a cost not to exceed $175,000. So we're within, that price. I want to let the board know also. So last year, no, not last year, 2 years ago, we bought a dump truck. It was a 10-wheeler. It was a 2021 Western Star. So the price of the truck was $102,805. And then the dump body was $65,750. So you see the increase again.
And as I just said, for a bigger truck, too.
Right.
This is some more special, this is a side dump, I don't think that one had a side dump.
They should all have side dumps.
Do they? Oh, okay.
With the Sanders roll.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there is a big price increase. The other thing too, when I spoke to Brian, is they're not gonna hold the price long. It will go up now, and he's already been warned that it will go up. And we just don't know how much it will go up. So it is recommended that the board consider this purchase this evening and decide.
Do we have the money in hand?
Yes, we do.
And it's been approved by the voters as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And this was part of the highway capital reserve fund, right?
Yes, it is.
This was the
We
why-
transferred money in.
so that we would
could
have the
expend it
cash on
successfully.
hand, yeah.
Right.
All right, well, do I
So,
hear a
I'll
motion?
make a motion to purchase the single axle Western Star and a dump body.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to purchase the truck mentioned. I've already forgotten what it was. Is there further discussion among the board?
We're gonna have to trust somebody else on this one.
I'm impressed by the trade-in, actually.
Yeah.
Right, I know too.
Because that's a 10-year-old truck, right?
Yes.
Which is good. I mean,
Oh, trade-ins, I
Is
think,
it a
right?
map? Is it a map?
no, it's,
No, I think it was the Western Star.
I don't think we have any,
No maps.
we have any.
No, I think, yeah.
Um,
I think
But
in the
they've
case of
been-
prices going
they
up,
hold their value.
the trade-ins are
Oh,
going up
That's a
too.
good point. Yeah,
So,
that's
right,
probably exactly what it
right,
is.
So that works in
Yeah.
our favor.
This
There's something more
Right.
to it.
Yeah.
Is there any public comment online? There's nobody in the room.
Signature on this?
Do we, I think.
That would be Brian probably, wouldn't it? Or prepared for Brian.
Yeah,
I don't.
I can have him sign it.
Yeah.
I'll initial it.
Okay. Do we need to
I don't think we
say
need to.
that?
He's already authorized.
All right. So there's no public comment, no further discussion here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we are on select board unfinished other business. Financial trials balance period 10.
So in your packet is a trial balance for the general fund and the highway department. They're in separate reports. So as we get into the budget later in the fall, this is kind of what you're gonna be looking at. I do encourage you, if you have questions, you can always
Warning us.
come to my office. General fund, I'm a little concerned about. I can't tell the board where we're gonna land, whether it'll be positive or negative or, until the end of June, when we start doing our audit. So what happens is that there's a lot of prepaids in June. So bills are due July 1st, so we pay them out of this fiscal year. And that money last year was about $144,000. So when we're running lean and tight like this, I just can't tell where it's gonna end up. So in the general fund, we have a fund balance of $242,809.71. As far as revenue goes, we still have, just for the budget, we should be trying to collect another $105,839.57.
Sarah, what pages are these listed on?
So page 4 of 9 is
Right.
revenue. And I'm looking at the uncollected balance.
Your total fund balance, Charlie, was on page 2. That's how much is remaining from the total amount collected to where we are currently.
Is that a higher number than usual, Karen? The uncollected balance?
No, I've seen it higher than that. But I'm to the point right now where basically taxes is the only thing I can collect. Now, I'll be looking at delinquent taxes, 2 years in arrears. Whether or not we have a tax sale this year, I don't know if we will or not.
That's the other, as far as uncollected taxes are concerned,
Yes.
this represents only this year's uncollected balance. So this is
Correct.
only the amount, so there are back taxes as well that haven't been
Right.
collected, which total almost 200?
It's down to about 100 and, last I knew, 177,000.
177.
Yes. So there are programs out there for people to apply for, to get assistance with property taxes and/or utility services. So we're doing our best to get those people to at least, apply. And we're seeing applications and names come into our office that we're gonna receive payments, so that's all good.
That's good.
And that 177 number is a little higher than we usually see.
Yeah.
Right. So on the very last page, 9 and 9, would be the expenses. So in our operating budget to spend, we have $157,838.04. Of that, we're gonna have prepaids. So these numbers are gonna change.
Constantly.
I hope so. Better. But I've been watching spending, especially in the general fund. And all I can say is last fiscal year, we did not have a deficit. We did have surplus. And somebody said, congratulations, because I'm surprised you even have a surplus. I knew 22 was going to be tough, and I warned the board. And I'm hoping it's not going to be as bad, but I won't know until the very end.
Fiscal year ends June 30?
Correct.
Yeah, no, and certainly at this point in time, I mean, as we're all saying in our personal lives, all those costs are out of control. So
Food,
anything
gas.
anything that we're
Yes.
paying out for
Right.
consistently
Yes.
is already increasing.
So the ARPA money too, because we chose the standard allowance, which that money can be used for government services, might be a consideration. I don't recommend that at this time, because I want to see where the numbers will be. So that's kind of the general fund.
Okay.
The highway department looks a little different. Sure.
So when will we have more of the information of how this all shakes out?
June 30th, I think.
But do we have to wait until, into July? How quickly is it clear?
Well,
at the end of the fiscal year.
So we have until the end of August, actually, to keep moving money back and forth.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna do billing for utilities, the end of June, right? So all that money that comes in July, we put it back into this fiscal year. Again, if we have a tax sale, which, there's potential for a couple properties that, owe quite a bit of money right now. It's not I feel uncomfortable doing it because we're still in a COVID state, but, reaching out to some of those folks and getting them to apply. And again, it's, I can't do that for them. They have to initiate that. Whether or not they do, that's a whole nother story.
But basically, we zero in on it roughly till about June 30th, at which point Karen has a pretty darn good idea, but we have 60 days to finalize everything. So, that it tends to shift a little bit then, but it only tends to shift by a matter of, a couple percent, maybe not by large volumes. And something along the lines of the flood that we had last year, can just throw the whole thing off by huge volumes in, a day. So,
the other thing too, we pay the school 3 times a year. So we've made all 3 payments. Normally, we get a check back So last year was $50,000. And I knew our budget was gonna be tight, so I didn't send extra money. I sent enough to cover what the state said that we had to send them. Now, there's an adjustment every year by the state towards the end of the year. We may see a check come back. We might, I'm hoping we don't have to pay them, but we may see a little kickback from the school. So sometimes that's my saving grace.
Is there a certain number that triggers a tax sale? Or do you use that as the town's judgment?
It's a 2.
Time.
Yeah, times, usually 2 years in arrears.
2 years, Eric, and our policy states only 1.
We can do it after a year.
Yes.
The big disadvantage, and you probably know this, is that when people don't pay, it seems punitive to put somebody up for tax sale, but the interest payments to the town and or to, if it sells a tax sale to a tax sale owner, are big. It's 1% per month at 1 point. You get an
It's
8%,
1%.
you get an 8% whack on the day after taxes are due in February, and then it's 1% per month, so it's a lot of money. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you sort of feel like it would be nice if we didn't have to do this, but it just sets somebody further and further behind.
It does compound the issue too, because when they get 2 years behind, some people, there's no way to catch up,
It just gets harder.
so.
It's also, for better or for worse, it tends to be a real motivator. We often start with, a dozen possible houses going to tax sale and end up with anywhere from none to, most I've ever seen is probably 5 or 6, but last year we had 2. Yeah. So it does, it instigates people to get it.
And I've only conducted 2 tax sales since I've been here, so. And I've been in the office for 4 years, so. We try to avoid those.
So before we move on to the highway, Mr. Fairman, do you have a question about the general fund or a comment about the general fund?
I do. This would be a question for our town manager regarding prepaids. Just to clarify this for the benefit of the public, are we on cash or accrual accounting?
We are a little bit of both. But,
Please explain.
Pardon?
Please explain.
Please explain.
Oh, so we're usually accrual, but some of our accounts are cash.
Okay, now concerning prepaids,
Yes.
you referred to the balance of the general fund that you are projecting as at the end of the fiscal year. And in that context, you referred to prepaids. What is a prepaid?
So a prepaid, Mr. Fairman, is when we have a bill that's due July 1st, which is in the next fiscal year. We pay it in June because we have to pay it, or it's going to be late. So that money, and it shows up in our audit. So that's not really money available to us at that time, but it is shown up in the next fiscal year.
So a prepaid refers to an expense that's actually incurred during the following fiscal year.
Correct. But
So therefore,
it's spent in, it'll be spent in this fiscal year.
well, I'm hoping I'm making clear here that we're actually talking about 2 things at once. We're talking about an expense that is due and payable in terms of we're going to get the benefit of the expense in the following fiscal year, but you are accounting it in the current fiscal year.
Yes.
Now, that makes the question of whether we have a surplus or a deficit or we come out even really an indeterminate question, because we're doing 2 things at once. we're charging it in the current year, but actually the benefit is in the following year. So I would, since you agree with me, I would suggest that when we are discussing, as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, how we're going to turn out, we keep that in mind. I'm going to try to remember, if I happen to be at a meeting, to ask you, so how much of the money we're talking about here is actually for benefit in the following fiscal year? Because it really does clarify what we're looking at, it seems to me.
It does, and it will, and I'll know more in June, Mr. Fairman.
It also, the other thing, of course, that plays into it, and I know you know this, Mr. Fairman, but we did the same thing last year and the year before and the year before that.
Right.
So it's an accounting issue less than it's an actual monetary issue, because they, you know, I mean, one year to another that may vary, but we basically do the same thing. It's also the reason that we have that 60-day leeway period for all finishing up the accounting, is because money comes in, money goes out during that time that's accountable for the previous year, so.
Yeah, it's like payroll too. Depending on when payroll ends, the end of June, we're moving money. It's like, because we might have 1 week in this fiscal year and a week, and we don't want to, you know, split that. We want it to be credited to the right fiscal year.
Right.
Because what happens is it can put us in a deficit position starting the new year, and that's not the way to start.
The other thing that's a little complicated about this is, as far as cash flow is concerned, we don't have significant income coming in. I mean, we always have cash flow in excess enough for it not to be a problem, but we don't get our first tax payments.
Right. August.
Until the
right.
third week in August.
Yes.
So we often, that 6 week period in there is a cash crunch time.
Yeah. Some towns go by calendar year, and I don't know if it's any better. So
It would be the same problem.
Probably still
When
the
you-
same problem, right?
It's just a budgeting.
Yeah. All right, are we all done with the general fund? Let's move on to the highway fund.
It's very short. So page 1, fund balance, $313,713.36. You'll notice on the revenue on page 2. So estimated revenue and received to date. So the received to date is higher because we requested a line of credit for $500,000 to offset the expenses from the storm.
Right, okay.
So we have more revenue than we anticipated.
Okay.
I know, and this one's a weird one when you have all this stuff going on. On page 5, for the expenditures, so we've overspent because we've spent $500.
Paid out the $500,000.
So,
right, okay.
and this is where, you know, having that money come in from FEMA in this fiscal year is gonna, you know, it'll shift both the expenses and revenue. But I'm also gonna pay off the line of credit, which is $500,000. And I wanna do that this fiscal year.
And do you have an actual date for that yet, or not?
We have 3 projects obligated right now, and Jessica Roderick, our FEMA representative, the total amount, 90% from FEMA right now, is $617,000 plus.
And do we anticipate when we're actually going to have that in hand?
Well, it's all in review right now.
Right.
So I'm hoping.
So no.
No news is good news.
Right.
The minute I ask.
Until it's not. Yeah.
Right. The minute I ask, I'm gonna be like, oh, bummer. But, so we're gonna play the game.
The feds or the state?
This one's through the feds.
It's federal, yeah, right.
And it's actually distributed, often the state distributes, but not for FEMA, right?
Yeah, and then the state has another.
They have the ERAF.
Right.
At 17.5%. And I have a question into our representative, whether or not
We're entitled to that.
whole 17.5, or we're just gonna see 10%. But
It'd be nice if they gave us the whole 17, right?
Merry Christmas. But no, it'd be nice, so I'll keep you updated on that too. So we're gonna play the game, the numbers game for a little bit, until the end of mid-June, and we'll see how everything turns out.
Okay. Is there any discussion about the highway fund among the board? Is there any comment online? Okay, hearing none, moving on to boards, committees, and commissions, the Wetlands Committee appointment, review, and approval. So we have a recommendation, I believe, from Kerrey, which I'll just read. The subject is Laura Campbell, recommended by Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee. Hi, Karen. At its last meeting, the Wilson Wetlands Stewardship, boy, I can't speak. Oh, right. The Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee voted to ask Laura Campbell to join them. As chair of the Conservation Commission, I support their recommendation. Laura has been in touch with the Conservation Commission over the years, helping us locate vernal pools when we were carrying out an inventory with the assistance of the Vermont Center of Eco-Studies. Since she is always out walking with her colleague exploring Putney's forests and wetlands, she's often alerted us to situations which need attention, such as noticing in 2020 that a sturdy fort was being built across the Beatrice Aiken Conservation Site Trail. She includes the Sackett's Brook wetland in her walks and is dedicated to saving it. We recommend that the Select Board appoint Laura Campbell to the WWSC. Thank you for your help in this matter. So.
I know it's a formality, but we typically ask for a letter of interest from the potential appointee. Do we, I'm assuming
Laura's here.
Laura,
so in lieu of a letter of interest, Laura, are you being volunteered without your knowledge?
No, I actually have written a letter of interest, but I was told to do it this way, to have, to express my interest at a meeting, and they would be in touch with the select board and lie low. So that's what I've done.
Okay.
So the letter went to the Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee. So
yeah. Okay.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Laura Campbell to the Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Laura Campbell to the Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee. Is there a discussion on the board? Is there public comment online?
I don't see any.
All right. So hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you for volunteering.
It's a beautiful letter Anne wrote. I'd forgotten most of those events.
All right, so the next piece is the Rescue Town Representative Appointment Review and Approval.
In your packet, there are two candidates. I've also given the board roles of the Board of Trustees of Rescue, Inc., so you could understand what the responsibilities are. So there is a letter of interest from Heather Small, and there is one from Mr. Howard Fairman. And Mr. Fairman has provided additional information that he will explain and talk to the board about.
All right, were we thinking of doing this in executive session? How long will the other ones?
Are both candidates here?
I'm
here.
Yes. I think so.
Yes, Heather's here and Mr. Fairman's here. So,
I think we should have deliberation in executive session.
I think so too. Thank you both for your letters of interest. Mr. Fairman, did you want to say something in addition?
Yes, please. First, I would like to clarify a point. People have been talking in this meeting about a representative to Rescue Inc. It is actually a trustee to Rescue Inc. My basis for this statement is Rescue Inc.'s IRS Form 990 lists trustees, including from various towns, and one of those in the latest one posted online, which is for fiscal 2019, is Mr. Bartlett, who formerly had been appointed to be the town of Putney's Rescue Inc. trustee. So we are actually talking trustees here. Now, in that regard, you have received a 4-page document from me, which I'm just going to briefly summarize. And of course, it now becomes a public document. You are appointing a trustee who will be personally liable for fulfilling fiduciary duties. While trustees of charitable organizations may be held to a relaxed standard, Rescue Inc. provides life or death emergency medical services, so I shall hold myself to the strictest standard. I therefore am detailing my understanding of this gravest crisis in Rescue Inc.'s 56-year history since 1966, so that you may appoint me knowingly instead of disavowing me after the fact. Vermont statute says emergency medical services means an integrated system of personnel, equipment, communication, and services to provide emergency medical treatment. Now, Rescue Inc. affords basic and advanced emergency life support, basic and critical care transport, standby services at public events, a technical rescue team, child safety seat installations and inspections, and COVID-19 vaccinations throughout Vermont EMS District 13, plus Stratton and District 12, and Chesterfield and Hinsdale in neighboring New Hampshire. The town of Brattleboro is the keystone of emergency medical services in 13 Vermont and 2 New Hampshire towns because it is home to 1/3 of Rescue Inc.'s population and the shortest distances and times from dispatch to return via Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. The town of Brattleboro's withdrawal from Rescue Inc. is cream skimming, minimizing costs of providing emergency medical services within the town of Brattleboro. Absent Keystone Town of Brattleboro, Rescue Inc. no longer can provide an integrated system of personnel, equipment, communication, and services to provide emergency medical treatment, having lost 1/3 of its ongoing ambulance service and other revenues, while still having to pay most of its ongoing operating and overhead costs, creating a conservatively estimated $1.1 million annual operating deficit. I am attaching my financial pro forma based on Rescue Inc.'s latest IRS Form 990 posted online, conservatively estimating that ambulance billing rates in the remaining 14 towns will have to be increased by about 50%, or Rescue Inc. soon will be bankrupt. This is not an integrated system of personnel, equipment, communication, and services to provide emergency medical treatment as mandated by Vermont statutes. Full disclosure, I have summarized a 4-page public document that I have shared with news media and state legislators so that your decision be whether you wish me to follow through as your appointee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Heather, do you want to provide any information as well?
I can. Mine's not going to be quite as detailed as Mr. Fairman's. I've worked police, fire, and EMS for the last 20 years of my life. I did work for Rescue at a point in time. In that role, I was the union president and sat through plenty of these board meetings that, given this position, I'd sit through now. I think some experience is probably not a terrible idea when it comes to deciding the role of Rescue and the town and their partnership together. That's all I've got. Like I said, mine's not nearly as wordy.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I believe that we are going to discuss these and the following ones in executive session. So thank you both for your interest, and we will have a decision later this evening.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, so is there further comment online on this? Doesn't appear so. The next piece is to discuss the ARPA equipment reviews and approval, which I believe we also want to discuss in executive session. So you've attached the ARPA the committee resolution.
I did.
And then we have, I believe we now have 6 letters of interest? Or is it, did I count that wrong?
4.
6.
Yeah, no, you have 6.
Okay. So we have letters of interest from, the first one is from Lisa Papazian, Ruby McAdoo, Keith Marks from Next Stage, Louise Garfield, Jeanette White, and Justin Altman.
Remind me how many slots we agreed to?
So we said 7, I believe, right? 5 to 7, and
okay.
we also made it kind of specific, and I think that might be where we need to think about this. We asked for a Putney for-profit business owner, a representative from a Putney nonprofit organization. We wanted a member of the select board and a member of the planning commission and the town manager. And I don't know, we said the town manager shall serve as a non-voting member, so maybe that would be the 8th member.
Or I don't count.
As a member.
Right.
You count, but you don't count for this purpose.
It's okay. I can.
You're used to that role, right?
I'll sit in the back seat.
So it's great to have a lot of interest here. It's wonderful to see these letters of interest pouring in. I think in this case, we don't have anybody on the planning commission who's stepped up yet, have we? Or have we?
I attended the planning commission meeting last night via Zoom, and I did make the announcement that we were looking for a planning commission member.
Okay.
I did have interest from one person. I have not seen an interest letter as of yet.
All right.
But there is possibility. They're still short one person too.
Right.
So maybe the new member will step up.
Or maybe
I would say
my idea was we get one of these people to agree to be on the planning committee.
Exactly.
Right.
There you go.
Or someone that
Reverse
ran
psychology.
for select board.
Pardon?
Or someone that ran for select board.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope too is, and I don't want to complicate things, but once this ARPA committee is established, my hope is still to create an economic development committee. I think it's very important. I think it will tie into a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to get a committee pulled together to help with the town plan.
Yeah, that was a couple of years
So
ago.
I think there are some good candidates that we can form another committee. And it may be a subcommittee under this ARPA committee. Just throwing that out there, people.
Okay. So is there further discussion on the board about this piece?
Do we have it to, I'm unclear whether we're having a discussion now.
I guess we'd just be, I don't
If
know.
there's open discussion, questions about the role of the committee or anything
Just
like
generally
that.
about the role, not about.
Not about the,
The
we're talking about that later.
No questions about the role.
Are we voting on the applications for the ARPA committee?
We're going to have a discussion in executive session
Okay.
first, and then.
And then we'll come back out and we'll do our voting at that point. Is there a discussion on, Laura?
excuse me, would you just review the size of the committee you're looking for?
It's 5 to 7 members.
Yes, and you have about 4 letters there?
We have 6.
You have 6 letters there.
Yeah.
And we have to have a select board member, a planning board member.
Yeah.
And Karen.
Karen. So we actually have this issue where we actually may have too many people volunteering for a committee.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Is there other comment online?
No hands.
Don't see anybody. Okay, so let's move on to other business. Is there any other business among the select board? Does anybody have other business online?
Just great to see the 5 of you. You look good.
Thanks.
Is that Swift?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, that was me.
Next Swift.
All right, so
I'll make a motion that we enter executive session under Title I V.S.A. 313, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided that the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public official or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during the open meeting.
do I have a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session under Title I V.S.A. 313 A3. Before we do that, well, I would like to invite Karen into the meeting. We will be making a decision. Do we want?
Austin will have to hang out.
Can you hang out? Sorry about that. So before we vote, the next meeting of the select board is May 18th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. at the town hall and on your favorite Zoom channel. So can I have a vote? Can I, all in favor of going into executive session?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, so we have exited executive session at 9 o'clock. And we have ended up tabling the appointments to Rescue Inc. because it ended up that we have a question about the makeup of the trustees. So we will hopefully get to that at our next meeting.
I would like to make a motion that we appoint to the ARPA, what's the proper title for the ARPA committee? For the American Rescue Plan Act Advisory Committee, that we appoint Jeanette White, Lisa Papazian, Ruby McAdoo, Keith Marks, Justin Altman, and Peg will be our representative from the select board, and Pip Bannister from the planning commission.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion that we haven't already had?
Is Karen on that list?
Karen would be a non-voting, member.
So all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Just a reminder for people that ARPA committee would be subject to open meeting law, so those meetings will be open to the public, and we would certainly encourage input from others who are interested.
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.